Hello and welcome back to another episode of Risers and Followers presented by Mojo on the Mojo Podcast Network. As always, I am joined by my lovely co-host, Dalton Cates. Dalton, this is like the first time in my life I've seen you not wear a hat, so that's fun.
I know I had to switch you up, keep you on the toes a little bit.
Right.
I got a haircut, so I was like, I'll let the hair fly out a little bit today.
Looking fresh, bro. Looking fresh. All right. Keeping things straightforward and simple on the show as always. We have the Ravens taking on the Buccaneers on Thursday Night Football tomorrow night. The Buccaneers are favored in this game, which is really strange to me. 1-point favorite at home Thursday Night Football. We're going to go through and do some long or short on some of these players. So let's just jump right into it. Here we go.
Long or short.
All right, starting things off, we're going to go with a little more disappointing. Oh, it's moving. Hang on one second. Just looking. I don't know why. But anyway, we're going to start with one of the more disappointing players in the NFL so far this season. Always has high expectations, of course, because he is the GOAT. Tom Brady. You know, a lot of rumors about what's going on with him. A lot of stuff going on at home, obviously, with his whole divorce situation. He seems off so far this year. I wouldn't say washed looking because, you know, the arm talent looks the same. He doesn't look like Matt Ryan out there, but this offense is just not connecting right now for the Buccaneers. Brady's still up 1% this month on Mojo. But what are your thoughts on Brady?
Yeah, he's definitely taking a step back this year, and I think a lot of it has to do with the early season weapons. Like, he hasn't had Chris Godwin in camp to kind of build that chemistry with. Julio Jones, he's been with him in camp all year. He's been banged up. Russell Gage been battling injuries. And also, like, Bruce Arians is not there, which I think also has a factor as well. And I think a lot of this with Byron Leftwich and, you know, it could be a new scheme. I'm not too familiar with, you know, how much changed from Arians to
Leftwich. Didn't change that much because I feel like Brady wouldn't like that.
Yeah, I think just the mindset of the offense just in general was probably the biggest thing. And I don't know. I'm not too worried about Brady. I mean, he still has the weapons there. Godwin has been getting peppered with targets, and we know he's a really good receiver. And as he gets healthier and gets more time from that ACL timeline, he's going to play better. And Evans is still there. And if Julio Jones can ever get on the field, that should help.
Please, man. Please. Right, let's go through those weapons, actually, though. Let's go through those weapons. First and foremost, Mike Evans, obviously. All reliable, up almost 4% on Mojo this past month. $25. What's your stance on Evans?
Yeah, he's just consistently consistent. 29 years old. He's probably somebody that's going to continue to produce throughout the rest of his career. I mean, we see guys who are producing on his level. Like, he's a Hall of Fame trajectory right now. And the guys who do that can be productive through their young 30s. He's 29 right now. I think he's a hold on Mojo. I'm not sure if you're longing him. He's still $7.84 feature value. So you're almost expecting him to play like 34, 35 years old at somewhat of a similar pace if he were to get there. Whereas if you're selling him or shorting him at that price, you're probably hoping or expecting him to have a not as long as a career.
Not aging as gracefully if you're shorting, of course. Absolutely. All right, next up, you already mentioned him a little bit here. Chris Godwin coming off that ACL. Of course, going to need some more time to get back to, you know, full strength, full speed and whatnot. Still up almost 3% on Mojo this month. I guess the market is kind of enjoying Chris Godwin being back on the field, looking somewhat like himself, getting some production over the past few weeks. Long, shorter hold on your boy Chris Godwin.
I'm gonna long him, and I think this is where like age becomes a very important factor when it comes to Mojo and players' values. Is Chris Godwin entered the league at 21 years old, so when you hit on a wide receiver who's 21, now they have this extra longevity, these extra seasons they can start to accrue. He's only 26 years old, and he's getting peppered with targets right now. Since coming back off the ACL, like I don't think anything is going to change. He's proven that he can be an elite wide receiver, and he's done, I think, and commanded more targets than I think most of us expected in his first year off the ACL, especially with a late season ACL tear. I think there was somewhat concern that, you know, maybe he wasn't going to be as productive, and he hasn't been the same yet.
I was concerned about Godwin coming in.
Yeah, same.
And season, but he's been looking pretty good on the field so far.
Exactly. I think the biggest concern is he hasn't had those games yet that we've seen, but he's getting the targets, and naturally, once things start to, you know, work out with that offense and some of the kinks start going away and get ironed out, like, I'm not too concerned. I think Godwin's definitely along, and he's somebody that's going to be an elite wide receiver in the next 4 or 5 years.
Love it. We covered the air attack for the Buccaneers. Let's go to the ground. Leonard Fournette, Cheeseburger Lenny, has not moved much at all over the past month. Gone up and down a little bit, but he stayed at 0.25% down, which is basically as minimal of movement as you can get on a player over an entire month. Thoughts on Fournette? $17.45. He has been all over the place in his career. He's been in the league for a while now. What are your thoughts?
Rashad White are my thoughts. I think we're starting to see this takeover right now. Rashad White got 42% of the snaps last week. Fournette just hasn't been as – he wasn't necessarily a very efficient player last year, but he got a lot of volume and they utilized him in the receiving game. So naturally his stat line probably looked a little better than what his actual like on-field talent is. And the thing is, this year they drafted Rashad White, and Rashad White is a good young running back. And he's slowly starting to eat in the offense. And we see with these rookies, they usually in the second half of the year, they start to get more time. And we starting to see this progression with Rashad White, where at the beginning of the season, he was only getting a few touches a game. And then he starts getting 20%. Now he's 30. And last week, he was at 42% of the snaps. And that's extremely encouraging. And you have to wonder, like, if this trend continues, like they're almost in a committee right now where Fournette's the lead guy, but now, if we're asking ourselves a question, is 4 or 5 weeks down the road, now is it like a legitimate 50-50 split there? And what does this mean for Fournette after the season if that happens? Like, are they willing to, keep Fournette? Or is he going to be somebody that they cut and release? Or is he just somebody that's going to maybe take a back seat to Rashad White? But I think all things are trending in a direction where it's really hard for me to see Fournette paying off his $5 in a 17 cents future mojo value.
I totally agree. And I honestly think that the retirement of Tom Brady is going to be huge for all of these.
Yeah, that could be something too.
It's going to be a lot of shockwaves in this offense. But I think Leonard Fournette, honestly, is going to be a casualty of that transition period of, maybe they go out and trade for a veteran quarterback or try to kind of reload instead of retool or rebuild. But I think Fournette's going to be definitely going to be a casualty of that kind of 100%. Aftershock of Tom Brady's retirement. I think he'll be hitting the road. I do think Rashad White's season is looming. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. Let's move over to the Baltimore side of the ball, starting again with the quarterback, Lamar Jackson. He's been having a great season so far. Staggered off a little bit these past couple of weeks, but he started off red hot. Up 15% in the last month. That's a lot of gains for a quarterback. Up $9 to $68. Thoughts on Lamar Jackson long term?
Yeah, he's really somebody long term. I wouldn't say I have questions about, but I'm not as bullish on for a couple of reasons. Is we don't have a bunch of historical comparable players that are similar to Lamar Jackson. That's what makes him so good, right? He's such a unique player who can literally like run the ball for 100 yards. He can throw the ball for 300 yards on any given week, right? And what we tend to see with some of these more athletic players at other positions, whether it's running back, wide receiver, tight end, like as they start to hit like that 30-year-old mark, like that's when their athleticism starts to wane, right? And we have to ask ourselves, like, how is Lamar Jackson's game going to be able to translate in a scenario where he's not as mobile and he's not throwing the ball a ton? So for me, he's a hold right now because I do think that Lamar Jackson's like genuinely like a good enough quarterback as a passer to get by and be productive still once his legs start to, not be this massive part of his game. But also, I think a part of the reason why he has done so well as a passer is because of that, that extra dual threat ability that he does provide right now. So for me, I think he's somebody over the next 4 or 5 years, he's going to smash and he's going to continue to crush. But there could be a time in which like things really start to crater quickly for him. And I hope it doesn't happen. We saw it like with somebody like Cam Newton. I wouldn't say he's like the perfect comp, but he's somebody who utilized a lot of his legs. Mind you, Lamar is a better passer than Cam Newton was. So maybe it's not a massive cliff to what we saw with Cam Newton, but it's definitely something to keep your eye on as he starts to hit 30, 31, 32 in his career.
Yeah, absolutely. Love the take there. I think he actually, let's pull up the chart again, only at $68. I think he could keep going up to like 80 over the last couple of years. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Maybe even 90. But then towards the back end of his career, maybe he would be a good short candidate in a few years. But for now, I think he's a buy personally. But yeah, totally agree with everything you just said. Moving on, another pass catcher here for you, Mark Andrews. Hasn't moved much at all this past month. He's an elite tight end. He's also significantly cheaper than a guy like Travis Kelce. What are your thoughts on Mark Andrews on Mojo currently?
Oh, 100%. He's 100% along. Like Travis Kelce's $26.23 on Mojo right now. And one thing that's really interesting about Kelce is he really didn't start his career until he was 26 years old. I think everything that Andrews has shown so far in his career is that he has been an elite tight end. And I don't know why we would not see that continue to happen. Like even, and he's also the crazy thing is he's produced also in a run first offense too, which I think is the most impressive thing. And it's the thing that, you know, we can look year to year and know that Mark Andrews, regardless of situation, is going to be productive.
His numbers in the run first offense are extremely impressive. It's a very
100%. His early career projectables are like putting him. I wouldn't say like he's definitely like trending somewhat towards a Kelsey and Gronk level. I wouldn't say like to that extent, but he's like close enough to where he should probably be valued closer to, I would say, $20. I would say is a fair price, and he's like rather young too. I think he's only 26, 27 years old.
Yeah, he's 26 or 27 for sure.
Yeah, so he's somebody I for sure would long 1,000%.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think he's pretty undervalued, and I think he's going to continue to rise. One more passing option here in Baltimore for you, and it's not Devin Duvernay. It's Rashad Bateman. Yeah, he's been pretty disappointing so far this year. He's had some bad luck with injuries. Been more of a big play threat than I was expecting instead of more of a consistent receiving option. Down 5% on the month. What are your thoughts on Bateman? Are you buying the dip, or do you think he's relevant where he is?
Man, this is so tough. I really want to long him, but when it comes to these young wide receivers early on in their career, early production doesn't matter, and it's rare that we see guys who haven't been productive through 2 seasons really start to have long careers. And I do think Bateman is the type of guy who can buck that trend. We've seen guys like Robert Woods had a 5th-year breakout, and some other players who were drafted early. They have done it, but it's also not something that happens a ton. And we see a lot more guys who fall by the wayside, and we keep propping them up thinking that they're going to be really good. I think it's a couple things that are going in Bateman's favor right now. Is A, he's been really efficient when they've thrown him the ball. And B, there's a lot of opportunity for him to still be had. Like, he's still not running 100% of the routes yet. He's in a run first offense. Matt Harmon does a lot of great work with reception perception, looks at success rate, and Bateman as a rookie crushed. Bateman as a prospect was amazing. So I want to buy into all those things, and I think all of that is extremely amazing and encouraging. But he's also dealt with injury issues in his first year and in his second year. And at some point, it's one of those things where I think it's almost a skill in a sense, to where some players can deal with injuries a little bit better than other players. And I think that's why this term injury prone gets labeled, and all these medical doctors say it's not true. But in a sense, like, there is some level of how you deal with your body, how healthy you are, what your diet is, and all that stuff behind the scenes. And I'm not saying that Bateman is that type of guy, but I'm saying there is a somewhat of a concern that we've seen it through 2 seasons so far. And, you know, he already did not practice earlier this week, and he's full practice. He's questionable again this game. So it's like, okay, like Rashad Bateman, like, if you're going to shine and you're going to show us that you're that guy, like we need to also see you on the field as well. So, I don't know. I'm buying fully on the talents of Bateman, and I think that he can be one of those guys that kind of bucks a trend, even though not being productive in there. But it is something from a historical perspective to at least be wary of, to where I'm not fully bullish and putting all my chips on a long when it comes to Bateman. And I understand that there is potential downside if I were to long him in that scenario. So I think right now he's a hold. And then once we start to see like Bateman like put together 4 or 5 weeks of consistent production, of knowing that this is the guy that we can become, and then, you know, stay on the field, you know, next season, that he's somebody that you just unload everything on, because he's that talented of a player. But we just got to see first.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think he is a super talented player. I just think the way the Ravens are utilizing him is very interesting. They're using him more as like a downfield weapon, which is kind of interesting. I thought he was going to be more of the Hollywood role of, there's going to be some downfield shots, but he's going to be your true one, you know, running the full route tree and everything. But Bateman's been more utilized downfield, which is interesting. I want to see how that utilization plays out throughout the entire season. But last, most certainly not least, though, J.K. Dobbins. Very interesting career so far. Kind of been a tragic one, honestly. I was a big fan of his coming out of the NFL draft. I think he still has some juice left, hopefully. But, I mean, he's super young. That so much future value still left on J.K. Dobbins, down 12% in the last month. I think he's a short. What do you think?
I think right now he's a short, because I don't think he's going to play this year. I'm going to be completely honest. I do not think – and if he does play, it's going to be in a very limited capacity. Him already coming off that ACL, which was just more than an ACL injury, like, he's not fully going to be back from it. And I don't think over the next, until this end of the season. Like I don't see really too many scenarios in which Dobbins increases mojo value. I think if anything goes down. And I think back in the offseason is something where you can consider longing him again. And I think for in a similar manner to like something that happened to Saquon is this was kind of a freak injury from Dobbins. And we have seen players come back from it, but sometimes it takes longer than a full like a year, like 16 months to fully recover.
I mean, that knee injury is not a simple ACL. You know, there's a lot of additional damage in there too. So of course it's going to take some time. He's got to be patient.
Exactly. So I think getting a full extra offseason, 2 years removed, we saw him as a rookie and he was so good as a rookie and he was really starting to get that work. And I think the Ravens really viewed him as that guy, like heading into year 2. And I still think they do have high hopes for him. But again, he's somebody that we could see 24 years old. And I think this is different than a scenario with like a Cam Akers, because Cam Akers came off Achilles and we have never seen like really any success stories of a running back coming off that Achilles and be productive. Whereas Dobbins coming off of ACL with some extra, ligament damage that he can likely come back from. But 2 years off that, heading into next year, Ravens, unless they draft somebody or sign somebody, we're going to have a clear indication of what they view about Dobbins. And my guess is they still like him and he can head into next season, be their workhorse, be healthy, and almost be like this kind of like comeback player of the year type of talent.
That'd be really fun. That'd be really fun. Maybe we can.
I mean, he's still talented. I don't think there's anything that we should really shy away from when it comes to Dobbins long term. But I think in the short term, it's something that he's probably not going to play this year too much.
I totally agree with you. I think that long term, I think this could be a good long candidate. Maybe wait for his stock to go down a little bit more because I agree. I think right now he's a short. I think he's going to spend some more time on. Obviously, he's on the IR right now. He's going to spend a lot of time on the injury report this season if he does continue to play. Going to be pretty limited there in that Ravens backfield. But long term, there's still plenty of talent with J.K. Dobbins, and if he gets healthy, he's going to have a role in this Ravens backfield. They really like him, and as fingers crossed they don't draft somebody, but. A lot of interesting storylines to watch with J.K. Dobbins, especially during the offseason. There could be an offseason hype train for J.K. Dobbins, the return of Dobbins. So be on the lookout for that, especially on Mojo. Maybe a lot of fun value over there. But that's going to do it for another episode of Risers and Fallers presented by Mojo. Dalton, as always, thank you for stopping by, and we'll see you guys next Wednesday. Goodbye, everybody.
Must be 21 or older to gamble. You must be in New Jersey to trade on Mojo. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.